Right, it's my privilege today to welcome back to Rugby Park the former King of Rugby Park, John Bourke. John played 166 odd games for Kilmarnock, scored 57 goals, made his debut against Morton in the League Cup, and coincidentally his final game was also in the League Cup against Hibs. Before we get to sign for Kilmarnock, John, tell us about before you signed for them, your schoolboys.
Well, my father was a goalkeeper. He was a goalkeeper in the British Army, and of course he encouraged me to play in goal, unfortunately. And I played in goal up until I was probably about 13 or 14. For some reason, I don't know why, I decided at secondary school to play centre half, and I played centre half for about 2 or 3 years. Until in my 5th year at school, so I would have been around about 16 or so, we did not have a striker in the school team, so I thought, I'll give it a try. And of course it was, in those days with Blaze Parks, a Moldmaster ball, and you know, the ball was always up in the air, and it was a lump up the park, so that kind of suited me because I wasn't too bad in the air. So it just progressed on. I got into the Glasgow. The team didn't make the Scottish team, but I played in the Glasgow under-18s, and that was it basically. I played at an amateur team, Dumbarton Castle Rovers, and I played there again. I started there when I was 12 until I was about 18. Believe it or not, I went from goalkeeper to midfield and then to striker eventually when I was about 16 or 17.
So what age did you sign for Dumbarton? Was it Dumbarton the only club that was in for you, or was there other clubs sniffing about?
Basically what happened, I don't want to kind of go on too long, but basically what happened was the PE teacher at the school I was at played with Drumchapel Amateurs, who were a big amateur team, still are I think, and he wanted me to go and play with them. So I'd said to the Dumbarton boy, the amateurs at Dumbarton, that I wanted to leave, and he said, look, if you stay with us until we're out of the Scottish Juvenile Cup, we'll give you a trial. And in those days you could get a trial for the reserves. So I get a trial for Dumbarton reserves. Believe it or not, my trial match for Dumbarton reserves at Rugby Park was against Kilmarnock, and did okay. I think I scored a goal.
We'll forgive you.
Get another game against Morton in the midweek at Capello, did okay again. Then played Rangers reserves again, and I think I lost 5-1, but I signed after that. So I signed round about the Christmas time, 72. I signed for Dumbarton. So it was just pure luck that I wanted away from the amateurs. It wasn't as if someone noticed me like a scout. I just fortunately got a trial.
So after 3 or 4 years at Dumbarton, you got a fairly big money move up to Tannadice and Dundee United, and by your own admission, you probably say it wasn't the happiest time in football.
It's probably the worst year of my life. It was just so much pressure, and it was abuse. The manager really did abuse players during the game, training, just constantly. One of the reasons they signed me was I played with Walter Smith at Dumbarton. He played with us on a Saturday. He coached Dundee United midweek and played with us on a Saturday almost for a whole season. And he recommended me to McLean. So I've got him to blame for going there. But it was quite a good move, but just awful.
So again, you told me off camera that you left Dundee United to start your career in teaching, and Dundee United eventually released you, and you got a phone call from Mr. Snedden to come to Rugby Park. You more or less hit the ground running at Rugby Park.
Oh, yeah.
Night and day compared to what you had been used to.
Oh, absolutely, it really was. I was really very fortunate. I was out of football until into September, so I missed the start of the season because I was still tied with United, although I wasn't getting up there. I didn't get my teaching post until that time, about September. As soon as I I phoned Dundee United and said, I'm definitely not coming back, I've got my teaching post, you can do what you like. And that was fine. 10 minutes after that phone call, Davy phoned me to say, would I like to sign for Kilmarnock? And it was just fantastic.
21 goals in your first season and 27 games. We won promotion that year. What was your best goal, or what do you remember of that season?
That's a
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. I felt like I was talking to Jimmy Clark today, and we were reminiscing about the first game. In fact, the first game I watched from the stand was Arbroath at Rugby Park, and I just remember thinking, this Killie team are a good side, played really attractive football, and the park obviously always helped. Rugby Park was fantastic surface, as you well know. So I knew I thought, well, I'll do well to stay in this team because they were so good. And my first game was against Wraith Rovers. Managed to score a goal. Well, for my first game, sorry, was against Morton. I think we lost in aggregate to Morton, right. But then we played as Wraith Rovers, and it was just a great football side to play with.
The team runs off here: Don McCullough, McLeod, McDickin, Clark,
yeah,
Robertson.
Another
Clark.
Big important thing for us was the manager, who was completely, in my opinion, was completely the opposite of Jim McLean. That Davy just encourages all the time. He was just so enthusiastic about it. Never abused anyone. In fact, I remember going out onto the park in the changing room before we went out. The last thing Davy would say to us would be, "Boys, we're a good side. We're a good football side. Go out there and enjoy yourself." And that was just, to my ears, it just blissed to my ears to hear someone say that. And it was just encouragement all the time, as opposed to the previous season. It was just abuse, it really was.
So after get promotion, we managed to stay up 8th. Unfortunately, the following season we got relegated. Do you think being part-time was a major contributing factor, not being able to sustain?
Without a doubt it was. And most of the teams I played in the Premier League, part-time, always, apart from Dundee, it was part-time. And you know, we always we were doing quite well up until Christmas at that time, you know, but through the long season, through the winter, going to work, training at night, you really don't have the reserves to keep it going on the pitch on a Saturday. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we just couldn't maintain it. So being full-time with the team we had would have been fantastic. We would have done a lot so much better.
Fortunately, we've come out, rebounded the following season and went straight back up to the Premier League. Yeah. Obviously, I think Jim Clooney was the manager.
Jim was the manager.
Was he totally different from Davy, or was he?
He was. He was. You know, some of the players thought that Jim Clooney was a really hard taskmaster. They were kind of shocked. Davy was much just a nicer person. I mean, I just loved Davy for his attitude. He was fantastic. But the players would say to me, "Oh, Jim Clooney's," and I think, no, you haven't. I was under Jim McLean. Jim Clooney is a pussycat compared to Jim McLean, so he was. So I thought he was okay. Right.
Again,
the rest of the players didn't.
We get relegated again that season,
yeah.
Unfortunately. You then left, I think you went back to Dumbarton, is that right?
I did go back to Dumbarton, yeah.
Dumbarton.
I'm sure Jim Clooney encouraged me. It's funny, the managers, if they're really desperate and they're looking for the club to get money, Jim Clooney was kind of encouraging me to go back to Dumbarton, and I wasn't all that keen, mainly because of the Killie support. And I mean, as you well know, the Kilmarnock supporters were just fantastic towards me. I'll never forget them. The best supporters ever, in my opinion. So anyway, I was encouraged to go back to Dumbarton at that point. Yeah.
You played for Dumbarton, I think, for a couple of years, and then ended up at Bourke,
Yeah.
where you got the call in 1987 to come back to Rugby Park. Was
Yeah.
that a phone call that was right out of the blue and one that you were never expecting?
That was completely out of the blue, Ian, absolutely. And Eddie, God rest him, asked me to sign. And of course, Eddie's a legend at Rugby Park in Kilmarnock. And I jumped at it. The only problem was, I actually said to Eddie, and it was towards the end of the season, I think, I said to him that because I was at Beacon and I wasn't getting a game up there at that time, and I was kind of just a bit disgruntled with the football, I decided to finish it. I wasn't expecting, obviously, a phone call from anyone, so I decided to hang the boots up at that point. And I said to Eddie, I will play until the end of the season, but I want to finish and retire. And he said, that's fair enough. However, through the close season, I got a phone call from him probably the season had started, and I wasn't back at Rugby Park, of course. I got a phone call from Eddie saying, would he help out, believe it or not, because of a few injury problems, suspensions, and because I was still a Kilmarnock player. So he asked me if I would play, and I said, yeah, but I'm only playing one game. And it was, of course, against Easter Road, and
that season you re-signed was the game at Firhill where Jimmy Gilmer scored the free kick.
Of course it was.
Can you remember that game?
Oh yeah, a lot of pressure on the team, because I think a win would have guaranteed us staying up. Yeah. A draw, possibly, depending on the other results, but it was a tough game. I don't think I played all that well, if I remember correctly.
Did Eddie change anything in the way? Obviously a lot of pressure on that game, as you say. Did he change anything in training, or did he change his team talk? Or?
I can't particularly say he did, really. You know, again, it was just encouragement, and probably the system we played, he knew we could play well and get a result. It was a tight game, but Jimmy Gilmour's free kick was phenomenal towards the end, and that was a nice way to finish, of course. Although I didn't. A
few quick fire questions, John. Best Killie player you've ever played with?
That's a good question. There have been a few. Midfield players, Jimmy Clark was phenomenal as far as linking play. Always wanted to play 1-2s. George Maxwell was one of the best strikers of a ball I've ever seen, and his passes from midfield to the far post, his strikes were phenomenal, absolutely. So I had a lot of time for George. I think a few Kilmarnock supporters were so, but George not been maybe hard enough, but he was a good player, so he was.
That's not because he's a PE teacher, the same as yourself,
that would help, and a principal, so yeah, he likes me. I've had a good relationship with the first year there with Ian Gibson, Gibby, up front. After that, of course, there was, I think Joe Kearney.
Joe Kearney.
He was a character.
Right.
Had quite a good relationship with him up front, and Bobby Street as well, of course.
Street.
Yeah.
Your best Killie goal and your best goal you ever scored in your senior career? It doesn't need to be at Kilmarnock.
One of the nicest Killie goals was in the game we had to win at Bourke, and the fact it was Dumbarton was pretty special. I think it was a tap in from 2 yards, which was my speciality at times. But the game we won, we had to win it at Bourke. That sticks out. Goodness, I can't really think of a few headers that over the years. I remember one, I actually scored a 30-yarder, but only at my career. I never really shot from a distance, and it was against Jimmy Brown. He was at Ayr United, and it was nice scoring against Ayr United as well. That was at Bourke. That was into the top corner. I still think he could have saved it right enough, but so that they kind of stick out.
And who was the toughest player you played with and played against?
Played with. I would,
Again, it doesn't need to be Kilmarnock.
yeah. Big Derek was quite a hard character, so he was. Hard but good. Big Paul Clark as well, I would say. There was another boy that I felt, he was an Arbroath centre half, who I found really tough, really giant guy, and it was, guy was, I think Kearney, Big Joe Kearney. His brother was a goalkeeper at Dumbarton. He was tough. The likes of, I played against Billy McNeil, I think twice. He was hard, and Colin Jackson was quite good, I would say.
The highlight of your Killie career and also your overall career was again, it doesn't need to be Kilmarnock. What was the highlight of your career?
Winning promotion, obviously, the twice we did it. Staying up, of course, was always special. The highlight of my career, believe it or not, was a game at Rugby at Bourke. I can't remember who we were playing, Dumbarton. This was after I'd been at Killie. And I've told you this story, but it just sums up the Killie support. As far as I'm concerned, their game was postponed that day, and a bus load of Killie supporters came to the Dumbarton game and were singing my name. And for that to happen with a team like Dumbarton supporters never sang at all. And for me, that day was one of the proudest days of my life. For the Killie fans to be at the game, to watch me, meant so much. Unbelievable. Just, I mean, that's, I don't know if that's happened with anybody else, but I'll never forget that. And I really appreciate it.
Fantastic.
It was.
And your biggest regret in football? I think I know what you're going to say.
The biggest regret, apart from going to Paradise, and that was just a mistake, but I was being young, the first move, getting money,
Right.
I thought, oh wow, this is, and I wouldn't have gone to England, I don't think. I was too much attached to Scotland. So to get the move was phenomenal. It just, I didn't realise Jim McLean was who he was. What was the sorry? What was the question again?
I'm busy. Like the biggest regret.
My biggest regret, yeah, if I could go back, was not signing for another season.
78.
I cannot believe that I did that. 1988. Eddie wanted me to sign for another season, and I regret it to this day. I'm afraid. I was only 34. I was still fairly fit, I would say, and I think I could have done something. And just stupid. I wish I could have had someone that could have advised me, but my dad wasn't alive at the time, so.
Before the days of agents too.
Before the days of agents, exactly. Who were they? So to play another year or two at Killie would have been phenomenal. I don't know, it's just stupidity. Young and stupid, I was.
And a final message to all Killie fans, John.
A final message to them, just that I'll never ever forget them. They're the best supporters on the planet. And you know yourself, Iain, when you were a young boy, idolising players.
Yourself, actually, I was a young boy then.
To then have that being put on you, the fact that they sang my name, the John Bourke give us a wave, every Saturday they sang the song for me, and that's, I'm just so proud of them. I just can't thank them enough for everything they did for me, because they're just fantastic. I love them.
John, it's been an absolute privilege, and I appreciate you coming down to Kilmarnock, but it is probably the worst day's weather we've had this year.
It certainly is. Iain, it's been a real pleasure and an honour to do this, and thank you very much.
No problem, John.
Cheers. Thank you.